All right, let's take up private business. What is business? Well, in the ordinary course of life and business, we call it commerce. In the Bible, we see the Canaanite traffickers, people who traffic, or people who deal in commerce. The Bible specifically prohibits commerce, but not trade. What's the difference between trade and commerce? Well, the Commerce Clause in the United States Constitution is an Achilles heel. It gives Congress the power to regulate commerce, trade, commerce, business, and industry that affects a public interest, can be regulated and controlled by government. And we see that in Wickard versus Filburn, cited at 317 U.S. 111. Wickard versus Filburn. Here's the story. A guy by the name of Filburn is a farmer in Indiana. In 1938, during the Depression years, the government came along with a price support program for wheat. And they said, look, sign up and we'll pay 96 cents a bushel. Now you're going to get 56 cents a bushel. We'll give you 40 cents more if you'll sign up for this price support regulatory program. And so Filburn signed up. Now when he signed up, he got paid 96 cents a bushel, but he was limited to 20 acres. So he signed a contract and he says, I agree that I'll grow no more than 20 acres of wheat, and you'll agree that you'll pay me 96 cents a bushel for every bushel that I harvest. There's the deal. Works in 39, 40, 41. But in 1941 or 42, Mr. Filburn planted 40 acres of wheat. 40. Twice as much as his allotment called for. Now, he took 20 acres, harvested it, and he sold it into commerce, and he took 20 acres and fed it to his turkeys. So he did not sell 40 acres of wheat into commerce. He took 20 acres and he used that for his turkeys. And when the government got wind of it, they prosecuted Mr. Filburn. He took the case clear to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court came back and said this: it is hardly lack of due process or equal protection of the law for government to regulate that which it subsidizes. So it tells us the first chain, or the first link in the chain, is commerce. So government can regulate that which it subsidizes. So when government gives you a benefit, government then sets down the rules. Well, then if you wanted to stay out of commerce, out from under the rule-making body at Article 1, Section 8, the Commerce Clause, then you'd have to stay out of the contractual arrangement with government. That's private business. You see, Mr. Filburn could raise all the wheat in the world. He could have 100 acres, 1,000 acres, 1,000,000 acres, and take it out into the marketplace and sell it. But once he took the government benefit, he also took the government regulation. And you know, that's what everybody does when they get a business license. People get a business license, and then they complain about the regulatory schemes that government comes in and regulates that business by. You see, we didn't have regulation in business in 1900. And that's because the businessmen in 1900 didn't receive any government benefits. Now let's take a look at a second aspect of this called the adhesion contract. You know, people in the Patriot community have been battling statutes requiring specific performance for years, and with wide and varying results. Now, one of the great generalizations about social history is the thesis of Sir Henry Maine that the history of progressive societies may be described as a movement from status to contract. We Americans, over the past century, have made a conscious move from the status of common law free man to the status of businessman. And in the process, we wanted to conduct business in commerce with commercial instruments. Well, when you do that, if you're going to do business in banks, buy stocks and bonds, have equitable interests, then those activities have to be regulated and controlled for the benefit of all of the participants, including the public at large. And that's, of course, the business of government. And so government comes in with the Securities and Exchange Commission and regulates stocks and stock sales, bonds and bond sales, and corporations and corporate business. And, of course, along comes the sales tax and the income tax, and, of course, mandatory insurance, and all kinds of regulations that regulate each and every aspect of these businesses, like OSHA, the EPA, the State Tax Commission, IRS, and so on. Now, I operate a small private business here called the Gordon Law School. I don't have a business license. I don't deal in commercial paper. Tuition here at the school is paid in gold. We do business with people through private contract. We don't receive any government benefits. And because we don't participate in commerce, we don't have the regulations and the controls that ordinary businesses that do, in fact, deal in trade, commerce, business, and industry do have. Now, a contract of adhesion is summed up in an insurance policy. You see, an insurance policy is an adhesion contract. A driver's license is an adhesion contract. It is a contract that is imposed upon a vast host of vassals. And with the decline of the free enterprise system due to the innate trend of competitive capitalism towards monopoly, the meaning of contract over the past century has radically changed. Society, when granting freedom of contract, does not guarantee that all members of the community will be able to make use of contract to the same extent. On the contrary, the law, by protecting the unequal distribution of property, does nothing to prevent freedom of contract from becoming a one-sided privilege. Society, by proclaiming freedom of contract, guarantees that it will not interfere with the exercise of power by contract. Freedom of contract enables enterprisers to legislate by contract, and what's even more important, to legislate in a substantially authoritarian manner without using the appearance of authoritarian forms or means. Standard contracts in particular could thus become effective instruments in the hands of powerful industrial and commercial overlords, enabling them to impose a new feudal order of their own making upon a vast host of vassals. And the development of large-scale enterprise with its mass production and distribution inevitably led to a standardized mass contract. And the usefulness of these contracts was discovered in the banking, insurance, and transportation businesses, and their use spread to all other fields of large-scale enterprise and into international as well as national trade and into labor relations. And it's this uniformity of the terms of contracts which has become such an important factor in the precise calculation of risks which are difficult to calculate may be eliminated altogether. So therefore, the standard clauses in insurance policies are the most striking examples of this attempt to select and control risks assumed under contracts. All right, now watch how adhesion contracts work. Now, an adhesion contract is a contract that is binding upon you that you don't know the terms and conditions of. So, for instance, you go into the bank to buy a house. The bank finances your house and requires as one of its terms and conditions that you buy homeowners insurance and fire insurance. And when you go down and you buy the insurance, you don't read that policy. You could, but you don't. So you don't know what the terms and conditions are. Well, one of the terms and conditions is that you're going to keep full coverage on the house. So as the house appreciates in value, you're supposed to increase the amount of insurance coverage. So if you have a fire in the house, like as not, it's going to be a $14,000 average kitchen fire. So you buy a $100,000 house, and you insure the house for $100,000, but over the years the price of the house goes up to $200,000. Now you have a $14,000 kitchen fire. The insurance company pays you $7,000, 50% of the value of the house. And you sit there and say, that isn't fair, that isn't right. Well, that's what commerce is all about, and that's what adhesion contracts are all about, and that contract was written by the legal department of the insurance company and the banking industry. Like it or not, those are the terms and conditions of the adhesion contract. Now, let me show you the value of using gold and silver coin. When you come to school here, we will charge you gold coin. For instance, normal people would say they want $1,500 to go to school here. I would say to you that I want $225 or $90. $90 in gold coin, paid to me in $20 double eagles. That's 4.5 ounces of gold. That's 4.5 ounces. People will ask me, well, how much does school cost? Well, it costs 9 ounces for the 2-week schools, and it costs 4.5 ounces for the 1-week schools. How many dollars they want to know? Well, the answer is it depends upon whether you use the $50 eagle or the $20 double eagle. And people say, no, I want to know how many dollars. Oh, you want to know how many Federal Reserve note dollar units? Yes. Well, if you went to buy a $20 double eagle today, it would probably cost you around $340. Therefore, you need approximately 4.5 of those to come to school here, which would be in the neighborhood of $1,500. Or you would need 4.5, and it'll be just maybe a little bit less than that. Let's say it's $325 to buy the eagles. Those are $50 denominated gold coins, and it'll cost you probably $100 less than that. Now, somebody says to me, well, how much if I just write you a check? Oh, we don't take checks. Well, why don't you take checks? Well, you see, if I were to take your check for $1,500, the minimum filing requirement for me is $7,200. So let's just go through that. That's $15, $30, $45, $6, $7,500. I would go over the $7,200 filing minimum with 5 students, wouldn't I? But if I take $225, you see, $225 divided into $7,200. Or if I took $90 divided into $7,200, all of a sudden I could take 72 students, or about 40 students, or 5 students. Can you follow that? Now, I have to follow all the laws of the United States and all the laws of Missouri and all the laws of God, and I have to do all that at the same time. I can do that. I can't do it as a commercial merchant operating in trade, commerce, business, and industry with a business license trying to function under the Roman civil law, but I can practice the Mosaic law, the common law, and I can do that by using gold and silver coin, which is what I do. Now, some years back, I received a letter from the Missouri Bureau of Industrial Relations or Vocational Education. I think it was the Missouri Department or Bureau of Vocational Education. And they said to me, you're operating a law school and you don't have, we looked through our files and we can't find a license for you anywhere. So they sent me some literature and invited me to joining into the licensing scheme of the state of Missouri. So I wrote them a nice 9-page letter back, and I said, gee, I really don't want to participate. You see, under Wickard versus Filburn, if I were to get a license, then I would be regulated and controlled by the state. Now, many people believe that all state or all business activity is regulated by the state. That's not true. No. See, under our Constitution, everybody in the country is free until he impairs his liberty to some degree by creating a license, a benefit, a permit. So I can't have the benefits that come from this licensing program. In other words, I can't get the 96 cents a bushel. I can't have that extra 40 cents a bushel. But I can grow as many acres of wheat as I desire, and I can charge my customers whatever the market price will bear, or I can lower my prices. For instance, I could work for $1 an hour. You can't. You see, you're regulated by minimum wage laws. So while you have to be paid $5 an hour, I could work for $1 silver dollar an hour, which is worth $7 an hour, you see, in Federal Reserve notes. Or I could work for $5 an hour, which is minimum wage, paid to me in gold coin, which has a commercial trade value out in the marketplace of about 40 Federal Reserve note dollars. And that's because of the Coinage Act of 1964, which was codified in Title 31, Section 5101 through 5112 of the U.S. Code. Why don't we take a look at that? We'll flip over here to 5101, Title 31. The United States money is expressed in dollars, dimes, and tenths. Cents are hundredths, mills are thousandths, and a dime is a tenth of a dollar, a cent is a hundredth of a dollar, and a mill is a thousandth of a dollar. That's Title 31, Section 5101. Now, in Section 5102, the standard troy pound of the National Bureau of Standards of the Department of Commerce shall be the standard used to ensure that the weight of the United States coins conforms to specifications in Section 5112 of this title, and 5103 gives us a little more information and tells us that United States coins and currency, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banks, are legal tender for all debts, public charges, taxes, and dues. Foreign gold or silver coins are not legal tender for debts. So Congress comes along and says, okay, now Mr. Gordon, if you would like to, you can take a $20 double eagle and you can pay your property taxes with that. And I have to go in and pay, if I wanted to buy one of those, 340 Federal Reserve notes. So I could go in and pay my taxes with 340 Federal Reserve notes, or I could convert that to one $20 double eagle, and I would get $20 worth of tax credit for 1 ounce of gold. Isn't that just special? Now, a lot of times people look at me and they say, God, you're stupid. Why, you're just a dum-dum. Why, you don't have any brains at all. And that's why people with more intelligence than I have deal in commercial paper, stocks and bonds, and they buy Enron and WorldCom and Global Crossing, and fools like me. We're not smart enough to do business in trade, commerce, business, and industry, and we miss out on all of the profit and gain that comes from all of these neat activities in the stock market and bonds and so on. But as a little trade-off over here, when I take this $20 double eagle from my student, he goes out and he pays $340 and he gets that $20 double eagle. So I charge him 4.5 of those, and I can get 360 of those. Just try it. Just divide 20 into $7,200, the minimum filing requirement, and you'll get 360. Now, if I take one of those $20 double eagles down to my gold broker and I say, Charlie, I would like you to trade this in for me. I'd like to give you this $20 gold piece. It's a real neat one. And how many Federal Reserve notes will you give me? And he won't give me 340, but he'll give me about 320 or 315. And then somebody says, my God, Gordon, you are dumb. Now, look, you know, you'd be better off if you just charged $1,500 each time. Well, I discovered years ago that when I pay $1,500 or I collect $1,500, then I have to pay an income tax. And if I do very many of those transactions in a year's time, it could cost me as much as $42,000 in income tax and another $15,000 in Social Security taxes which is around, $57,000 out of my $100,000 income, which only leaves me with about $43,000. So one day I woke up and I said, my God, what would happen if I just took the $20 double eagle, gave you credit at it for 340 Federal Reserve notes, charged you 4.5 ounces, took in $90, divided that into 7,200, I could get 360 of those. 360 $20 double eagles has the purchasing power of $117,000 in Federal Reserve notes. And since it's under $7,200, there is no tax return and $0 of taxes. And then, since I've rescinded my Social Security account, and I don't participate in Social Security, and don't participate under Wickard versus Filburn in commerce, I don't have to pay that Social Security tax. Of course, then when I get to be an old man, I'll starve to death because I won't have any way to make a living, and I'll be old and full of years, and you see, I won't have any Social Security, and that's where I'm at right now. You see, in my high school class, all of my high school friends and neighbors and relatives, see, they all are retired now on Social Security, living their lives happily ever after on the dole, and George Gordon has no Social Security, so I have to keep working. I can't retire ever. I know it's terrible, but that's the trade-off that you make. So I get $117,000 a year in purchasing power under that $7,200. Can you follow that? Now, if I take $50 double eagles, I get about $40,000 worth of purchasing power. So like I said, what goes around comes around. And I make it a point to participate in gold coin and silver coin so that I don't have to pay that tax. Flip over here to 5112, and I'll show you the law. Gold coins is in 5112A, and then down here in silver dollars is 5112E. Now take a look at G. This is 5112G. For purposes of section 5132A1 of this title, all coins minted under subsection E of this section shall be considered to be numismatic items. So the coins that I deal in are called numismatic coins. Numismatic. That means that the people's fear, that they're going to confiscate your gold. That's fine. Remember they said they don't confiscate your gold if it's numismatic? Well, Congress was very nice to us, and they gave us this numismatic clause in 5112G. And then legal tender. Look at this, H, 5112H. The coins issued under this title shall be legal tender as provided in Section 5103 of Title 31 of the U.S. Code. So I've got numismatic coins, legal tender, and they are legal tender for all debts public and private. So I can take those in at face value, and I can spend them at face value. And when I spend them at face value, I get $117,000 worth of purchasing power for $7,200. So when God told us to use just weights and balances, you'll see that in Leviticus 19:35 and 36. He wasn't whistling Dixie through a straw hat. Furthermore, the laws of the United States always comport perfectly with the laws of the Bible. You'll never find the United States government or any state government or any city or municipality, county, or other political subdivision that violates the law of God. So if you can practice the Mosaic law and do that to perfection, you can also comply with all the laws of the United States, because we have a clause in our Constitution, First Amendment, called the Free Exercise Clause. All right, now, if you would like to learn more about how to do private business so that you can comply with the income tax laws and all the rest of the laws of the country, call me at the law school. The number is 417-273-4967. Again, that's area code 417-273-4967. Or just go to my webpage, GeorgeGordon.com. That's GeorgeGordon.com. Click onto the email and send me an email request. That's all there is to it. Now let's take up a second topic over here called family law.